Hi, welcome to one of MasterGraphics' most recent videos, and today I'm going to address our view of the evolution of 3D print and additive manufacturing since its inception almost 30 years ago, when it was invented really by Chuck Hull from 3D Systems, and then Scott Crump shortly after with Stratasys kind of really created the 3D print market. My name is Kevin Carr. I'm the president of MasterGraphics, and a little background on us so you understand where we're coming from is we are a Midwest-based company. We started almost 70 years ago around blueprints and sold wide format technical printers. But about 14 years ago, we brought on a technology from Z Corp, which is a 3D print technology in the color powder. We sold that for about 5 years. Then 3D Systems acquired Z Corp. We sold 3D Systems solutions, everything from metal to plastics, for the next probably 5-6 years. And then about 2.5 years ago, we moved to HP's new 3D print technology along with Mark Forge, just so you have some background of our experience in 3D print. But what I wanted to do today is kind of talk through how we think 3D print has evolved. There's been a lot of hype and disillusionment around 3D printing. Even about 8 years ago, we had this huge hype cycle around it. And really, 3D print, in a lot of cases, didn't deliver what everyone was hoping that it would, from even a design, prototyping perspective to a final use. And so today, I wanted to just kind of talk about how we've seen that evolve, because we believe we are truly now on the cusp of some breakthrough technologies from companies such as HP and Carbon, and on the metal side, Velo 3D. And so we just kind of want to give our view of where we sit here in the latter half of 2019. And I think one way to look at it is, if you look at a traditional design cycle, basically from concept to manufacturing, this is kind of an overview of what that process looks like. In this case, I'm just using an Autodesk design tool or design cycle chart. But the same thing would be whether you're using SolidWorks or Pro Engineer or what have you. But basically, if you look at the start, sales or marketing goes out and they get feedback from their customers, they look at the market, and they decide, hey, this is the type of product or the market we want to go after. Then it goes to design and engineering, and then the designers and engineers really put the nuts and bolts together, come up with a concept, try to make the product to meet the customer and market demands. Then it goes to kind of that prototype and test and validate to see that it really does what you want it to do. And then you get to that final piece, which is manufacture and produce. And what's so critical about this design cycle is, the key is to get through the design cycle faster in a shorter amount of time, more innovative, and more cost-effective than anyone else. And we are seeing this huge compression of design cycles, right? Think about our cell phones. Think about our automobiles. We're no longer keeping models for these extended periods of time. We are actually having to adapt to market needs and design even faster. And 3D print really has helped shorten this design cycle and kind of, again, improve it. But so if we want to look at it historically, this is kind of my concept. And again, take it as it's high level. There are, of course, some nuances where it didn't quite work this way. In some cases, people jumped right to manufacturing. But I thought this was a good way to look at it. And if you look at traditional manufacturing, when it was founded, 30 years ago, it really was used more in that test and validation stage. And why was that? The equipment was expensive. You had to have key operators that really knew how to use the equipment. And it took quite a bit of time, right? So it was fairly expensive to 3D print objects for those first 10 years. And only your bigger, larger customers had it, and you generally didn't 3D print it until you knew your design was fairly certain to be accurate. Again, it did absolutely shorten design cycles, because as opposed to going through the whole circle, right, and actually manufacture the product, only to find out that, voila, the product doesn't work, you could do it sooner. But this is where I saw, or I think the impact was huge at the beginning. Then if you look at about 15 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, all of a sudden we started seeing these $50,000 to $100,000 printers from people like Stratasys and the 1200 ES. You had 3D Systems, what later became the ProJet 3500 series. You had EnvisionTech. And customers were able to acquire equipment and actually put it in sales and marketing or in the design and engineering tool and do prototyping sooner. So this was a huge impact because, you know, the key thing, another part of this design cycle is to get to a no or a yes decision faster than you were before. So we saw a big explosion in this, especially when we sold Z Corp in the initial 3D System Projet series, and you saw this with Stratasys, and this was being done. And I will note, you know, during this period, you had a lot of these tabletop printers pop up with some, you know, mixed successes, but in a lot of cases, so sales and marketing could put sub $10,000 printer in their office and actually test it. So we saw a huge explosion in this market up until about 3 years ago. And that was a big thing. Now, if you follow kind of the main 3D print players, the 3D Systems, the Stratasys, the HPs now, and even the metal guys, right? Now everyone's focus is on production, right? And so this is where we're seeing the real advancements, and I believe the real progress around additive manufacturing, right? You have people like HP coming out with their production 3D printers, right? That can truly have an ROI comparable to some short-run injection mold. Ditto goes with carbon, right? Carbon's another 3D print technology out there that really is changing and evolving the world. So this is an interesting world for us because if you look at it, we had traditionally played in those first kind of 3 steps, right? And prototyping is much different than as you go to manufacturing. So what's happened is now I believe the market has to spend more time understanding how to add additive manufacturing into the manufacturing space and put around standards and processes, and quite honestly, for the manufacturing group to understand how that can be done. Because there's a lot of this misperception on how the technology used to be, right? The technology used to output items that weren't very strong or thermal resistant or, you know, didn't have the flexibility. But now if you look at these new solutions, again, we can actually manufacture parts, and it's becoming a challenge for our clients really to understand this whole design cycle and where it fits. Now, I'm not one that's going to say that all of traditional manufacturing is going to be displaced by additive manufacture, by no means, right? But I do believe that this market space is going to continue to grow, and a lot of it's customer demand. Again, we want shorter time to market. You know, we need more innovation. And so we believe this is going to be the biggest growth, and if, again, where we are investing most of our resources, and you'll see a lot of these additive manufacturing people as well. So, my last close, and this is interesting when I look at additive manufacturing, I've been in the print business for my whole life, and I hate to say it, I'm getting a little bit older, but and people needed printers to output blueprints and documents. But truly, with 3D print or additive manufacturing, our customers are, reducing costs, which is critical. They're being more innovative. They're being faster time to market, and they're improving their bottom line. So again, we wanted to kind of step back and give this view of how we've seen the market evolve. Again, there are some, differences where some people went right to manufacturing even 15 years ago. So I think this is just kind of a global view. My last note, because I'm not really talking about that today, is metal, right? If you look at metal production printing, there have been some huge advancements there as well. If you look at 3D Systems, Pro X320, some of the EOS products, there's a new company called Velo 3D. Those metal guys are really changing that market as well. And HP just announced their own metal technology to really compete and be similar to Desktop Metal's production machine. And so, but that's really a separate conversation because metal is, again, much more complicated, but there's a lot of advancements there. So hopefully you found this somewhat informative. I realize it's high level, but I think a good way as we look at our businesses as a whole when manufacturing, what you want to do is look at what pieces can additive manufacturing have an impact. And I encourage you to just go and make sure you're really aware and studying what the latest technology is, because there are some, again, huge advancements around manufacturing and building around the processes so that we can have the quality control and output predictability that's needed. So with that, I thank you for joining me. I always recommend or am open to any suggestions about my video. If you disagree or agree or even improvements we can make, I would love to hear from you.